everyone for being here. I would accept a motion for approval of agenda.
So moved. Second.
And I believe there is an addendum, an HR addendum. Can we add that to your motion?
Yes, with the HR addendum.
Is that okay
Second.
with the second? Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. No one has signed up to speak, but it seems like we'll be seeing quite a few of you shortly here. FEA report, there was no one here from FEA tonight, so we'll go right to the monitoring school improvement reports. Dr. Augrey?
Great, thank you. I travel with all of my friends tonight, so lots of support. Just to remind you that this year, new with our strategic plan, one of our initiatives is to bring to you and share with you the results of our internal reviews with our site visits that we do on a 5-year basis amongst all of our school buildings. Last year, you'll remember that we had a district accreditation visit. What has been set up through our school improvement planning is that we are mimicking, cloning that exact same process and the same standards at each of our sites every 5 years. So this year, in the 2016-17 school year, we had 5 schools that were able to host and plan for a successful visitation. These are also available in a report form. Tonight, they're just sharing their highlights of that visit with you, but on our strategic plan dashboard, all of these are uploaded and available for you if you want to see the full report. And I am not doing the presentation tonight, but I do want to start by introducing Cheryl Jansen. She is the principal over at McKinley Elementary School, and she was graciously voluntold this year. As Sue Meister works with us on a consulting basis, she used to be our school improvement planning person along with CTE. As she has moved further into retirement, we are trying to learn from her, and she's been working with us and Cheryl and also Sean Safransky at Davies. And they've been heading up this committee and really working closely with the site visits and the monitoring. So Cheryl is going to start us off, and then as each of the 5 buildings come up, they will introduce themselves and share some of the highlights of their visits. So thank you for everything, Cheryl.
Thanks. So we're looking at the results. Strategic Initiative 7 is the one we're working with sharing out today. So if you look at the bottom, of school-based improvement cycle, as Dr. Augrey had reported. So in the past, our school improvement cycles, our school had visits in order to be accredited through advanced ed. Our more recent cycles now are a system-wide, district-wide accreditation. So our schools then get our feedback based on our internal visits that they receive every 5 years, as well as each year annually as well. So we're going to be giving them feedback on their plans that are based on their data, as well as aligned to our strategic plan for Fargo Public Schools as well. So each of them are going to give you a little quick overview of their visit, and then their feedback that they received, and then some of their next steps that they're going to take. We will have time at the end of our presentation if you do have any questions. So our first school is going to be Washington.
Before I start tonight, I'd like to thank Sue Meister for all her work and guidance. She really has been a good mentor for all of us in helping us. I'd also like to thank the committee chair that we had at Washington. Her name is Kathy Cieslak, and she's from Fargo North. Now, our visit was in October, so in my advanced age, I'm hoping that I can remember what was going on in October. Just to give you some brief information about Washington, this is kind of what we are about at Washington School. I know many of you have been up at Washington with liaison visits and things like that, but we're kind of all about our school beliefs up at Washington, and those are kind of all 4 of them and some of the murals that we have decorating our building. This is kind of who we are. We have 375 students, over 60 staff members. We're a non-Title I school. We have a very active PTA. Lots of parents are involved in our school and come into our building for lots of different reasons. Our average class size is about 20. And at Washington, that picture there of all those kids, that's way more diverse than what we are. We have a very low level of diversity, ethnic diversity at Washington School. There are some challenges at Washington School, I think similar to many schools. I mean, we're challenged with things like student engagement, making our lessons meaningful for our kids, a wide range of learners. Those are challenges that I think we all share. But we are really focused that our challenges are actually the goals that we set in our school improvement plan. So the goals that we have had for the last several years is that all of our students are going to reach proficiency or 1 year of progress in reading, so 100% of them. Our second goal is in the area of writing, and we want 80% of our kids to be writing at a proficient level for their grade level. And that's kind of based on a Lucy Calkins rubrics that our teachers use and work. And then, of course, we want 100% of our students to feel positive about Washington School and being a part of our school family. Tonight, you're going to be hearing about positive practices in all of our schools, okay? And so there were some positive practices that were shared at Washington. One of those positive practices that they saw a good alignment between our school improvement plan and the things that we do at school. We have a writing goal, so we have writing PD. We have a reading goal, so we have reading PD. We have a school climate goal, and so we have a school climate PD. So the visiting team, I think they really felt that there was good alignment between our plan and the things that we do at Washington School. I want to credit my school team, my teachers and other professionals. I mean, we all work on this plan together, so I think that helps us to be focused each day when we come to work to try to meet those challenges that you learned about earlier. Another powerful practice that we learned about from our visitation was that there's more connectedness between all the components of our school's work. So again, that focus seems to be clear to the people that came to visit us in October. And we make a conscious effort to do that. Everything that we do, we try to have it spin off of our school improvement plan. So we're glad that the visitation team was able to see that the things that we're wanting to do, it's showing up in the things that we are doing. Our last powerful practice has to do with our school climate. There's a constant direction, and everybody is kind of on the same page. We work very hard to make sure that we're all speaking the same language to our students when it comes to how we want our students to treat and talk with students, how we want our teachers to treat and talk to students, how we want our students to talk to teachers, how we'd like teachers to talk to teachers. So we're very much about trying to make sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to our school climate, and that showed in our visitation. Also tonight, you're going to be hearing about opportunities for improvement, and we had a couple of excellent ones that came from our school improvement team. One is that they directed us to make better use of formative assessments. These are things like exit cards or common assessments that teachers might do. I think we do a good job of using some of the benchmark assessments that the district has made available to us, but the team was directing us to make use of more of those day-to-day types of information gatherings that teachers use to help guide our instruction. And actually the second opportunity would be actually taking those things that we learn and then applying that to how we teach. So using that formative data, that information that we gather on the run, and using that to provide instruction. One thing that we'll be doing next year at Washington School will be this literacy lab. We kind of started it this year. It helps our team focus on small group instruction, which we know is very important to helping kids make 1 year's growth. And so that's going to be one of our next steps. There we are, Washington Elementary School. That's our pledge that we say every morning. And again, it's what we're about. Many of you know that this is like the last time you might see me. Love y'all. You've been great. I want to thank Dr. Schatz, and I want to thank Dr. Agrid. I know Bob is not here, but you guys have been great mentors, great people to work with and for. So thank you guys very much. Okay? All right. Thank you. Next up, Dr. Jeffrey Resnicek. My leg was shaking.
All right. I'd like to echo Professor Carlson and his gratitude towards Sue Meister. Sue Meister was our external review person, so gave us a lot of feedback on what we can do and what we do at Centennial. I am Jeff Resnicek. I'm at Centennial. You see our motto up there. We say this every day. It's every child, every day. So we look at all 530 students that we have, and we treat each one the same all day, really with them in mind. We are a non-title school, 13% free and reduced, so we are in a affluent neighborhood. We have 25 classrooms with an average class size of 20 to 22, and our teacher experience is generally 13 years of experience. Some things that are unique to Centennial, Centennial's changed over the last 2 years. We've kind of been that buffer zone, that little sponge between Ed Clap and Eagles. As they have opened, we have changed with them. Over the last 2 years, our student population, we have moved on 230, 240 students onto Eagles and Ed Clap, and we have taken 140 or 100, about 140, 160 new kids from Bennett. So over the last 2 years, we've really changed in our demographics. We've become a little less diverse. So we've got a brand new group of kids that we're really trying to figure out who they are and how they fit and really trying to meet their needs. So over the last 2 years, it's been quite a unique opportunity. I pride myself in getting to know every child by name. That's a priority for me. So the last 2 years have been a challenge for me. It really has. So we have a very positive building culture and climate. That's indicative by our climate and culture surveys. This past year, we started out at basically 45% of our teachers feeling valued. This past year, 80%. So we're going up and moving on. So our challenge with a large school of 88 staff members is simply communication. These are some of the schools. The team comes in and actually uses an Elliott form. It's an effective learning environment observation tool, and they give us scores and feedback. And what I've highlighted there are our two top areas in our scores: well-managed learning environment as well as a supportive learning environment. And to the right are some important quotes that Sue gave to us that really speaks to who we are. A fifth grade student saying, "The whole team works together for me." Teachers, the attitude of flexibility that we are here to learn and we are here to support each other and do what we can, because being a non-title school, we have to rely on the human resource. So we back each other up and we support each other. And then we also believe fully that the best PD for us at Centennial is each other and getting into each other's classroom and learning from each other through observation and giving feedback helps us grow. As Professor Carlson said, we've got powerful practices, and our greatest resource, our greatest strength in our building is our teachers. Our teachers are dedicated, they are committed to improving their instruction so that we can meet our student needs. We have a true commitment on collaboration and cooperation, and as we said, and I've said, every student, every day is our motto. We also have a very school positive climate that's valued by students and staff. With students, I've talked to the board before about a culture camp experience that we provide our kids. That's a weekly opportunity for each grade level to come together 6 times a year to talk about bullying prevention, how we work together as teams, how we build a supportive community, how we've got each other's backs and we stick up for each other. And in doing so, it's dropped our reported behaviors significantly over the past 5 years. We do learning walks in our buildings with our teachers. It's an opportunity for teachers to get into other classrooms, not only giving feedback, but learning from each other. Over the year, that has built a strong trust that from K-5, we support each other. So my 5th graders, not having that opportunity to be in kindergarten or see kindergarten, now understand what kindergarten is and why that's an important foundation for them and their success at 5th grade. The adoption of learning walks, as I mentioned, is a strong PD that we have implemented into our building. And for next year, we will take it even further. This year it was student engagement. Next year we'll continue with student engagement, but then also look at ways that we can improve some of our reading and math instruction as well. Some opportunities for growth: being in a large building, it's using that data and getting everyone's voice and feedback in our plan. So timely communication between all our committees on what our committees are doing, and then soliciting feedback from other staff members on how we can improve that. That's our biggest challenge. And then it's using that data, and using that data with fidelity in our grade level PLCs and our school committees so that we're doing and planning and creating the best opportunities for kids and for student learning. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Ed Clapp and Jennifer Schultheis.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Schultheis, the principal of Ed Clapp Elementary, and our visit was in December. And what I can definitely say about this whole process, having been in the district now for over 20 years, when I first started, the whole idea of school improvement really was more looked at as more of an event, and it was time to do the reports. And now it truly has evolved to that continuous process of improvement that it was meant to be, thanks to all of the supports that we do have at the district level. So Ed Clapp, it's a newer school. Our school demographics were around 500 students. 20% of our students are EL, English learners, and we have about 18 different languages that are spoken. And 63% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch, so that does make us a school-wide title school. Some of the unique areas of our school, we just finished our second year in operation, and we're really that first school to be built in an already established neighborhood. And our diversity also is definitely a celebration and something that makes us unique with over 18 different languages that are spoken. Some of the challenges that we recognize, certainly having a new school involved students and families having to leave a school that they love to move to another school. And already in that second year, you just felt the difference with people really feeling like this is their school. It was meant to be there, and so we're really looking forward to that continuing to strengthen in the future. And then always increasing our cultural proficiency, both among our staff, that appreciation of differences among students, and then also fostering that among our families as well. So the external review team came in and they highlighted several things for us, and we were very thankful for that outside feedback, because our staff is very proud of our school, and it's fun to have those outside eyes come in and be able to give us some feedback. That whole idea of diversity and being a great source of pride for us came through in that report, which we were very excited about. And then just the positive school culture that we've worked to build in the short time that we had been open. So through that, we had 3 powerful practices and 2 opportunities for improvement. One of the powerful practices centered around the learning and work environment in the staff or found among the staff and throughout the school. They really found that we did focus on the appreciation of diversity. One of the quotes they included in the report actually was something that I had said. The staff I have could not be more perfect for the students in this building. It is an incredibly passionate staff, and most of the staff who are at Ed Clapp had been at other schools in the district and had chosen to come to work there, had chosen to work with those students, and you see it in their dedication to students each and every day. So I was excited that they focused on that, and the shared leadership that we have. Teachers really buy into that idea that we can all be a learner and we can all be a leader, and all of our staff truly lead something within the school. Another powerful practice is the staff and students embracing and celebrating the diversity within the building. It truly is a commitment to our students, helping them understand that, yes, we are different, but when it really comes down to it, we all have a lot of things in common, and the staff is really committed to that. We were excited to celebrate 97% parent attendance at our fall conferences. We work to have more than 95% attendance, and we have been above that in both the fall and the spring, which we've been very excited about. And the feeling that Ed Clapp is a caring place for kids was something that the team could feel when they were there. And our third powerful practice is the professional and support staff are effectively trained in the evaluation, interpretation, and use of data. They were able to see that through our implementation of our professional learning communities and the way that we have scheduled those throughout the year so that teachers are reviewing that data every 6 weeks and really looking at which students are growing, how can we better serve students, and where do we want our reading and math specialists to focus their time. So that was another powerful practice that they had found. The opportunities for improvement we are very excited about because we felt that they really nailed it, really where we needed to go next. The idea that to develop and implement a plan for greater collaboration across grade levels. We have a very collaborative culture within our grade levels, and now it's time to have those vertical conversations so that we can really improve that curriculum and instruction vertically for our students, and then develop and implement a process where learning strategies are focused on the use of 21st century skills. Part of that was making sure that our plan incorporated the specific activities that we were already doing around 21st century skills, and then also to just more intentionally work that into our plan, which we have done for next year. Madison Elementary.
All right, good evening from Madison, and I am Bobby Olson. And okay, so as far as our school demographics, we're going to be that small school up on the northwest part of our district, and we, with our population, is very diverse, and we're talking probably, I would say, 45% of our kids are non-white kids, and so very diverse that way. And as far as we're concerned, we feel like it's a strength for us. And it is really added to our culture up there at Madison. And it's something that we celebrate. What makes Madison unique? I would have probably given that for an answer, but I would also say that we would be like the epitome of a community school. And if you look at our geographic makeup, we're up there. We are kind of segregated, as I'm sure you guys have looked at before. The boundaries, we're just not connected residentially. So that school sits right smack in the middle of that little residential area up there. And so we are a community school if there ever was one. Challenges for Madison, higher poverty, of course. We're at about 80%, poverty rate. And that also leads to lower levels of school readiness coming in to kindergarten. So those are some of the challenges that we deal with. And I think this PowerPoint didn't load. So I'm just going to talk off of what I have. So as far as overview, I picked out 3 things. And one of the strengths that we had was significant evidence of Madison's instructional data approach helping students reach their goals. And so we have a very comprehensive data usage system that we are constantly working on and refining. So before a child even scores something wrong on a test, we almost know it ahead of time. So very good data system. Probably middle of the road statement that I picked out was Madison's instructional processes are powerful when implemented with fidelity. And we have some really good stuff happening. Our coaching is good, intense coaching. It happens and resulting in very good instruction. However, we still have some pockets out there that we want to continue to work at. We know where those pockets are, and we have a plan to reach that. So as far as one statement that I picked out that I feel like represented some of the challenges we might have is that we recognize that there's a lot of work to still be done in the area of parent involvement at our school. And we have come up with a plan for that. We have worked with the PTA, and we do think that we have a pretty good product for this next year. We've tried some different things, and we've just have never been quite satisfied with where we're at. So we did work with the PTA to develop a good, solid plan for that. So we're looking forward to that this coming year. So some of the powerful practices would include that we've developed a Google Doc that enables our classroom teachers to be working directly with interventionists and sharing data back and forth. So you'll never find our classroom teachers not able to answer questions about how somebody is doing with a reading intervention that might be served by special education or Title I. And so the communication with our data has been really helped out by this, and so that was one of the things that was noted. And then we also use multiple measures to help students set goals, and so we set goals at every single level. Our kids are setting goals, and that's a really powerful practice for them to look at where they're at, decide where they want to be, and then talk about what they need to do to get there, and so that's one of our strengths. In addition to that, we have a comprehensive triangulation system that enables us to continually monitor the progress of our students in multiple ways. And so, again, just really talking about the data usage. So some opportunities for improvement. The consistent implementation of Madison's instructional process, and I had mentioned that earlier, and the fact, though, is that we were able to take this data. What's really nice about this whole process is that we knew some of this already. It's nice to have that affirmation, having some outside eyes come in and take a look and say, yeah, that's what we're seeing. So we've developed a really strong coaching plan for next year as well to help out with that. So, and let's see, and I'm jumping ahead kind of because the PowerPoint isn't matching up here. So some opportunities for improvement, and that is, let's see, interviews across the board, again, revealed that we need to further our parent involvement. We have a plan for that. And in specific, our PTA, we met with them, and we planned things for each and every month to happen, and we've not done that before, and so we have things that range from movie nights to math nights, different types of nights that we can bring our parents in and actually sit down with them, work with them, or just simply have them bring their child and participate in something. And so that being driven by the PTA rather than being school driven, we're hoping for some success in that area as well. So. And on to Lincoln Elementary.
Hello, I'm Megan Kaiser. I'm the principal at Lincoln Elementary. And I just wanted to say thank you to Sue Meister. She really has been instrumental in really guiding the school improvement process, that it's not only something that we monitor, but it really has driven what we do and really formed our direction at Lincoln. And so it has been a wonderful process, and it's always nice to, Dinah, you've been at Lincoln and been able to really see what we do every day, and it's wonderful to invite a team in or have a team come in and really be with us for the full day and see this is what we do, this is why we do it, this is where our heart is for our kids. So a little bit about Lincoln. Right now we have 426 students. The last 3 years we've been privileged to be part of the boundary changes for 2 new schools opening. And with that, there's been some ebbs and flows. Lincoln is, with where we're at, located in the heart of the city. We also have the privilege of having a very mobile population. And so it's one of those wonderful challenges of how do we meet the needs of students as they come and go, and continuing to find those ways to tweak our instruction and meet those needs. 51% of our students are free and reduced. 17% receive ELL support. and we have at least 15 different languages that are spoken at Lincoln. We also have the privilege of serving our students that live in the Y shelter. Some of the wonderful things that our external review team noted while they were there, that we pride ourselves on being a data-driven school. In the last 3 years, we've really worked on our data-driven process, and how do we look at that as a systematic process, aggregate data down to our disaggregate data and into our classrooms, and really supporting our classroom teachers in that day-to-day instruction. They noted a positive climate and culture resonated throughout the school. This was evidenced throughout our hallways and with our staff and with our students. And that's a wonderful observation considering the transitions that we've had in the last few years, so that was great. Observations revealed incredibly supportive learning environment. We've spent a lot of time working on our vision statement at the school, and the team noted that not only was our vision connected to the district's mission and strategic plan, but it was connected right into our staff focus and our everyday practices. We're continuing to build our culture of coaching, and this was evidenced through our rigorous and effective learning environment. So, they noted that our small group instruction with literacy and math was evident across our buildings and in our classrooms, along with our self-regulation focus and social skills application. Powerful practices that they noted was engaging our family. So we have done a lot of work in trying to engage our family. So coming from a school that has a high free and reduced population, a lot of our families may have some reservations about coming into the school. So we have really tried to create many positive events for our families to come in that are low-key, high relationship building, so that they can really feel good about sending their kids to us, getting to know us. Some of those fabulous things have been art nights, reading and math nights, ELL family nights, our talent shows, our walkathon events. We have many PTA events, musical performances, family picnics, our parent-teacher conferences. We make personal contacts right away at the beginning of the year, and then continue to keep in contact with our families throughout the year. The team noted that we have a robust opportunities for staff development and learning and growth. We do this, one of the ways we do this that we're very proud of is our data collaborative conversations. This is where we're meeting with individual classroom teachers in a very mentoring, supportive collaboration of looking at their data and helping model through coaching next steps. Another powerful practice was our data, as I just mentioned, and having that system and procedures in place to continue to look at our data and support our teachers and our students. An area for growth, teachers engage students in learning through instructional strategies. It was noted that our learning targets are posted, but one area for us to grow is to continue to reference those throughout our lessons, and then to continue to grow in our 21st century and 4Cs instruction. That it's in our infancy, and that's something that as a school we've recognized and wanted to grow on, and the team also recognized that. And then implementing instructional process through student learning. So again, continuing to have our learning targets posted, referencing those, and then our next steps this year is really to increase our use of exit slips and use that as our formative data piece. Okay. Monitoring and communicating comprehensive information. So really making sure that we're communicating to our stakeholders what our school goals are. As a staff, we're very aware of it, of what our school goals are and what we're doing, but making sure that we're continuing to communicate that out to our stakeholders. And next, we have Carl Ben Eilson and Kathy Selberg. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. I have a team with me because our external review really was a collaborative effort. And so they're here to share this with us. So really, thank you so much. I hadn't been through this before. And I have to say, it was way more informative. It was so much better than it ever has been. So it's good stuff going on. Amy Herrick was our leader. I have had Sue Meister on speed dial for the last 2 years, answers all the time. So thank you for this opportunity. We've learned some pretty great things. So to begin with, we have a motto, and it's great relationships produce great students. That is something that our building says every day. We have, our teachers know it, our students know it. It's on our IELTS today, every morning, and we believe it. So if you look at our enrollment, we're a little bit different as far as our years. So I'm going to focus on our latest data. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, pretty close numbers. 238, 277 7th graders, and 262 8th graders. We have a class size of about 25. 62 teachers, 24 other teachers. We have 25 other personnel. And then so we look at our whole full-time staff, we have 111. So it's a big building. Going down towards the bottom where we look at some of our demographic information, 15,000 total households, which surprised me. I don't know why, but it just did. We have family households, almost 8,000, an average family size of almost 3. And so if you continue to go down this, you're going to see that we have some additional information that's talking about the income levels and all of the housing kinds of information. Our state assessments going up to the top right. You can see here that we have some work that we've been moving on. You're going to notice that all the way over at science, there isn't anything, and that's because 8th grade is where the science assessment starts. And then if you look down, we have our MAP assessment proficiency for the spring of 2016. And so you can see here some of the things that we have. Our building opened in 2006. Again, it serves students in grades 6 through 8, right in the central portion of our town. And we're home of the Bruins. So you're going to see that we have a lot of diversity. So our external review, I was the middle school administrator, 2 teachers. We also had the 2 high school teachers and 1 elementary educator that came in to share the information, to give us our findings. They examined materials, they interviewed, they observed, they had people that were right during instruction, and I think probably one of the most exciting piece for them was their student interviews, because we just pulled a group of students, and they got definitely some information for there. It was very exciting. Our leadership team, we had a FIA teacher, ILC teacher, who is Sonia here. She's going to share. Technology coach, which is Paula. Our Read 180 teacher has just left, so she's not here with us today. And we also worked with our culture survey and our advanced ed survey.
So the first standard, standard 3, the power for practice of the, standard 3 is the teaching and assessing for learning. Basically, we found out that we do a very good job in promoting a safe and supportive environment through positive relationships with our students. During the interview of our students, which we did take a very diverse population, by the way, we didn't just pull the best and the brightest, and all of the students said that they felt safe and that they felt that they had developed strong relationships with at least some staff person in the building, which is something that we feel strongly as teachers in our buildings, that's very important, that our students have a connection, at least one connection in the building. Also, students were actively engaged through various instructional strategies, whether it was through use of paper, use of technology. There's a big blend of the way that students are being taught and the way that they're able to express themselves. An accommodation of the different learning styles was evident to the team when they were in the classrooms with our teachers. The school leaders are formally monitoring and supporting the improvement of instructional practices of our teachers through the Marzano evaluation tool. And also through PD. They've done a very good job. Every month we have information on the Marzano tool, what we should be doing, how we should be implementing it into our classrooms. So it was very helpful. Another area of growth is the program of professional learning for all staff members. Needs to be continuous. So there needs to be a little bit more consistency in the implementation of the professional learning. And also that when new staff come in, we need to remember to educate them on the existing building initiatives and programs. Don't just assume that they know just because maybe they've been in another building. Also that teachers participate in collaborative learning communities to improve instruction and student learning. That staff will continue to participate in the collaborative communities. One of the suggestions that the team made is that they need to implement a school-wide method of documenting interventions, and that is something that as a team that we actually had been talking about and trying to come up with a concrete method of how we want to do that, so that all teachers can see what interventions that are being implemented and how they're being successful or maybe not successful and how we can make changes at that point. Also, staff members have been trained to implement a formal process that promotes discussion about student learning and conditions that support that student learning. There needs to be more consistent expectations and documentation and supervision by the administration was one of the things that the external team also felt strongly about. That staff have to be documenting more closely the information that they have taken from their students, and that administrators are expecting and wanting that information from their teachers as well.
And my slide surrounds Standard 5, which is continuous improvement. And so our powerful practices that were identified by our external team were that the professional staff continuously collect, analyze, and apply learning from a range of data sources. And so one thing that was very newly implemented in our building was the use of the reading inventory, or also known as the RI, which used to only be directly related to Read 180, but we went school-wide with it as another form of assessing our students and monitoring that through fall, winter, and spring, much like the elementary schools do. And so we can get timely feedback and be able to use that to not only identify students for Read 180, but for also interventions if they are in a regular English 8 class. That teacher is aware of their Lexile. They can make informed decisions based on that information. So that was new through just 2 years ago, which was, like I said, the RI. Another powerful practice was the leadership monitors and communicates comprehensive information about student learning conditions that support student learning and the achievement of school improvement goals to stakeholders. So we're doing a good job of sharing out that information, along with the alignment of building and district initiatives into the school improvement process. So we really try to keep in mind the strategic plan, operational plans, everything else that is feeding our school, so that we can use other individuals in the district or in our building to be able to improve our building through their professional development measures, and using database decision-making. So when we're thinking about our instruction as teachers, we're keeping in mind what those students know and are able to do so that we can do our best job of teaching them. And then professional staff are trained in the evaluation, interpretation, and use of data. And so that was all through that UDP process. PD time is used for school improvement process. So we had that opportunity this year to use our extended professional development time for this school improvement process. That really did take up a lot of our time, so it was very helpful for us to have that built within our school year, and that the staff knew ahead of time so that we knew when we were working and able to, again, use that time for a school improvement process. We did have some opportunities for growth surrounding Standard 5, which again was that continuous improvement cycle, which included professional staff continuously collecting, analyzing, and applying learning from a range of data sources. So the need for MTSS documentation and research-based interventions. And Mrs. Weiler indicated that sometimes we're tracking information in one source or another source through maybe PowerSchool or the MTSS tool, and we really just want to make sure that everybody in our building knows exactly where we're documenting our information, So again, anybody that needs that information within our building to make data-informed decisions has access to that and knows where to go for that information. Another opportunity for growth surrounds the professional staff are trained in the evaluation, interpretation, and use of data. So again, making sure that everybody that comes in that's new has that information, and then that guaranteed documentation again, so another spot for that. And then the last is leadership monitors and communicates comprehensive information about student learning conditions that support the learning and achievement of school improvement goals to stakeholders. So we're really thinking about that MTSS behavior that will be implemented and communicated to parents and students in a building-wide behavior plan and expectation model. And so that kind of goes to our next couple of slides, which is where we're planning on going in our building.
So our next steps is basically to make some changes within our school improvement team, because currently our team was fairly small, and we learned that through this process that this is a pretty big task and that we need to share it and have maybe more buy-in from some of our staff. So we've decided that we're going to have two different sort of teams, I guess you can call them. One will be looking at the academic piece, and one will be looking at the culture piece. And our goal is that the academic team will specifically be looking at those interventions. How are we going to track them? What is our common tool we're going to use? You know, those types of things. And then the culture team is going to be specifically looking at behavior and what type of plan should we have in place so that we are consistent across all teachers, across all grade levels. Because right now, I think that was one of the things that teachers are frustrated about, and that was one of the things that the external team had also mentioned, that the consistency may not be the same across teachers and grade levels. So we want to make sure that we have something more formal in place.
Finally, as we look at the very end of our slide, you can see that we have data-driven again. And we've done a pretty good job of continually getting our teachers informed, practicing on that data-driven. Now we want to make sure that we're using it. So that really is our next step with that. And finally, we were very fortunate to be part of the Marzano Leadership Academy this year. And our brains just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger with the amount of information we were receiving. And so we started off the year with in our teacher evaluations, really just looking at the teaching map. And this year, through this process of Leadership Academy, we've now been introduced to our learning map, So what we're finding here is our learning map is really going to be a driving force for our teachers. It pulls all of the elements together into really just a usable cycle for our teachers. So we're really excited to get that started, and that's the Marzano Leadership Map.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully, when we went through all the presentations, you really saw that thread of that continuous improvement. It started from the district level, and it continues to filter through our schools as well, and just permeates what we do every day. And hopefully you get a sense of that. And that is thanks to Sue Meister and her team have created just a fabulous piece. Rest assured that Fargo is in the forefront of how advanced ed and the process of continuous improvement, and just is on that cutting edge of leading North Dakota. So any questions for us?
Thank you so much. Any questions? Jim?
Yeah, I do have one for Professor Carlson. I'm a little confused, but there's still chance that I could amend the agenda because we have an HR report on it. You referenced the literacy lab that I think you said we're going to be working on next fall?
Yeah, we started it this year.
Was that an official take-back of your retirement announcement?
I'm finding it, when you're constantly thinking about the next year, it's hard to stop
Yeah,
that.
what is the literacy lab? And, well, first of all, thank you for serving the district, the students, and our staff.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
And I really do expect you to be retired, but if you want to stay,
Okay. Did you want to hear about what?
Yes, I do.
Okay. This year, we had a team of teachers. They kind of worked together as a team to learn about some best practices, some powerful practices in the classroom. And they actually did something similar to what Centennial has been doing. They did some learning walks. They went and watched one another share lessons with students and then debriefed with one another and then used that to, I just think, increase their skill level, grow their capacity. And with Kathy's help, they're going to continue and grow that next year. Because I think at Washington, we have some great small group instruction going on. It's something that we feel we want to grow. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? John?
I'm really happy to see this. It takes a very mature team and organization to get to the point of being able to continually improve instead of just putting out fires. And so this is really impressive. One thing in my personal experience with continuous improvement is you can get into like audit fatigue or assessment fatigue. Is that an issue at all yet? Was this a positive experience for everybody? Are we getting out of this what we were hoping to get out of it?
Saw nods. David?
I've got a question for Jeff. I had the honor of teaching Jordan, his daughter, and I think she left my class without any permanent impairments, if I remember correctly.
You're looking for affirmation there, David?
Jeff, you were saying something about, I think the term you used was teachers feeling valued. Was that what it was? It went from 45 to over 80.
Yeah.
What do you attribute that to?
Well, in 4 or 5 years ago, we started our culture camp. That was an opportunity to have our kids come together and do team building. But during that time, we actually took our teachers, our classroom teachers, brought them together for grade level meetings. And then also we've done that vertically so that we're talking across all grade levels and understanding what each other's doing to build from one year to the next. And in those conversations, and along with our learning walks, getting teachers into other teachers' classrooms, it's built a trust that what I'm getting as a fourth grade teacher from third grade is hard work and those kids are ready for me. And through that process, teachers have become trusting of each other and feeling their work is valued and important for my success.
Interesting. Thank you. David, did that answer your question? Anyone else have any questions or comments? David?
One more quick one for Bobby. Bobby, what's your school population?
Our school population is going to be about 155, and it'll vary within a few throughout the year, but generally somewhere between 150, 155.
And your average class size?
Our average class size is going to be right about 20. And once upon a time, I think, I think we would have been known for class sizes of 11, 13. That's pretty much been eliminated. So we'll have class sizes, up there, 23, 25, and we'll have a lower one to balance that out. So right about 20.
Bobby, I had a question for you, too.
Yeah.
You were talking about the diversity, 45% non-white. What do you have in your building in terms of staff or teachers who are people of color, for role models, and what are the challenges surrounding that?
As far as staff, people of color, I would say we have, I don't think that would be reflecting in our classroom teachers. Paraprofessional we hired this year was right out of our community, and so unfortunately we're going to lose him moving on into the ministry. And so that is something, though, that I have been thinking about along the way to try and find a staff that, when we have that opportunity that is from our community, so it is something that we're trying to keep in mind, but I wouldn't say the staff is real representative, of the population that we have. Now, as far as, staff in the building to work with ELL students, we do have a half-time ELL teacher as well as a full-time paraprofessional that is specifically ELL. But I would say in addition to that, though, we have several of the language issues that we might have. Our data usage and our instruction is pretty pinpointed. And so if they're not you know, like, if they're not technically called ELL staff, our whole entire staff is pretty good at being able to target those needs. So, and I would say with our reading, you know, for instance, our reading interventions that we have, anybody that's on a tier 2 or tier 3, tier 1 being grade level, tier 2 and tier 3, with our reading interventions, I think we successfully closed a gap in about 80% of them. And so we really had an outstanding year with that. So, so our staff has been pretty good at being able to reach those needs.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Dr. Schatz, do you have any final words?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank the team for taking time out of your summer to come here tonight. And just want to point out a couple different things. And John, your question was pretty poignant in that, you know, are we going through a process, just going through the motions, and, you know, is it really meaningful? Well, the thing that's meaningful about it now is that it's attached and directly correlated with the strategic plan. You know, that didn't exist before with the strategic plan and with what we're doing now with all these types of things. So that's directly correlated with that. So we know that we're focused in our district and the work that we're doing. So that's represented in what they're doing. And then the overall strategic plan is operational through an operational plan with improvement and monitoring going on all the time. So I think it all fits, and it all sequentially fits now. And so that's what's represented here tonight, is the work that they're doing to do that. And so in between that 5-year district-wide review, you have this going on constantly in the buildings. And so when it gets to the district-wide review, it's not something that's foreign or that's been sitting on a shelf. People are constantly in this process. So I think that's really a plus for our district and the work that these folks are doing, and I see a lot of heads going up and down. So appreciate your work, because it's not easy work, and it's good stuff. So thanks for being here tonight, and thanks, Rachel, for organizing all of that. So thank you.
Dr. Arcree, go ahead.
And just one more thing that I will add that I think is just a real bonus. We always talk about adding more things on the plate and trying to make those connections. So you've heard Dr. Gross talk about with the new ESSA Act, the effective learning environments that Jeff spoke about. That's a tool that Advanced Ed supports, and there's also a student survey about student engagement. That is a big indicator in ESSA of school quality as well as culture. And you heard every one of our buildings talk about the culture surveys we've been doing in the perception data. So that will not be anything new for us, and it will just strengthen this process. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Great, I'd just like to add my thanks, and we really appreciate that, and it's always great to learn in more tangible way what's happening in your building, so I really appreciate that. Thanks for all your good leadership and good work. Thank you. We'll move on with Dr. Schatz giving us an overview of all the policies we're looking at.
Okay, thank you. As you know, each summer now, we have gotten into a process of policy review. And initially, when we started this process, we were in the process of policy triage. And we got through that process. And subsequently, just when you think you have all the policies in great order, you continue to find other ones that need to be reviewed outside of what we now have as a series review. So this summer, the series 3000s fall primarily within to Brock's category and his departments. And so Brock and his team have already been discussing and splitting up and looking at a review of these policies. When we do a review of policies, what we're looking for is, are they current? Are they up to date with references, citations? Is there any new laws? Is there any new something that should be reflected within the policy? That's kind of the first step of a policy review. The second thing is does this policy reflect the practice in our business, in our day-to-day activities? And so they'll go through a process. If anything changes significantly, like always, we'll bring that to you. But when we come back before school starts, we'll be coming to you with any policies that we've changed or made some significant changes, and again, report that out to you so that you're aware of that. But the 3000 series will be the focus of the review of the series. If you go up and look at new policies, tonight you're going to hear about a school lunch count policy. That's going to come up a little bit later. Cindy has worked on that, and Brock will introduce that with Cindy. Lactation policy, we are in a final draft of that, and we'll be looking to put that into action starting with the new school year. Exit survey policy, we do the exit surveys, or at least offer the opportunity for employees who leave us, not retire, but leave us. And so those who want to take opportunity and do that, they can. We didn't have a policy, so we have a practice without a policy. So I asked Brittany to put some policy together, so that is in a final draft form. Some of the areas that we're going to look at for possible new policies would be fitness for duty policy, looking at what do we do when we have employees who, for one reason or another, throughout their career, from the time that they started with us to where now they're ending, the role that they play, can they physically handle that role? And is there something we should do and offer to employees for that? And there's something called fitness for duty policies. We're going to look at that and see if that makes sense for us. And so that would provide a procedure or a process for us to work with employees if, in fact, that situation occurs, rather than just the obvious one, and that is always go on disability or quit or do whatever. And so we're going to look at that and see if it makes sense. And if we think it does, we'll bring it to you and you'll know about it. Employee speech and or social media policy, there's several organizations that have those. We don't currently have that, and so we're going to take a look at that and see if that makes sense for us. Observation policy, this is something that we just need to do just to get so that we have some kind of policy in place when we have doctors, therapists, or others come in and observe students in the school setting, something that was absent that we feel we need to add. And then the staff and student safety policy, you're going to hear a whole lot more about that here tonight, so I'm not going to spend much time on that. If you go down below, updates and reviews, these are also outside of the 3000 series, and the graduation requirements would be due to legislative action. We need to update that. We need to clean up a little bit of language in the alcohol drug use. The counselors came forward suggesting that we clean up some language there. Transfer, reassignment, layoff, recall, we've talked about those before already here this spring. Longevity policy, update for specifically on support staff. And so we'll take a look at that. I think Brittany has some ideas that where we need to probably add or change some language. Attendance policy, student restraint policy. We've been working on a student restraint policy, reviewing the one that we had, making it much more current and up to date. That'll go right along with the other policy we're looking at with student safety and all of those things. But Patty and I had been working on that with her team for a long, long time, but we thought legislation would come along. And so we were waiting for the legislation, but then it got turned into a study. So we're ready to move forward with that. So we're going to roll that out along with the staff safety and student safety things. So it's all going to be a piece and a part that all fit together. Juvenile referral of a student with a disability. Special ed department has noticed that we need to do some policy updates there. Emergency response, we do our drills the way we do them now. We need to update our policy to reflect that practice. Discrimination, harassment, violence, update to include order to cease and desist. There's a process that principals have used in some buildings, but maybe not all buildings, but there's a form they use so that if two students are have an issue or a disagreement, there's kind of this contract that they enter into, and it's basically in order to cease and desist the behavior of bullying or harassment or whatever it might be. And so when we identified that that practice was out there, we thought, well, that would make good sense to incorporate that into the policy. And so people have that tool to use if they so choose to do. So we talked about it yesterday at our administrative summit. And then patron complaints, we just continually look at that to make sure that we have that in order, so we just have to add a couple different things there too. So as you can see, comprehensive again. Our policies are now dynamic documents. They don't just sit on a shelf, we actually use them. Sometimes the argument is do they use them appropriately? Is it consistent? Is it all this and that? But as we know, policies are purely the interpretation generally of law or procedures and things that you should do. And so yesterday as we met, we had 80 administrators all in one room for 8 hours talking about a variety of different things. The overriding tone yesterday and message that I sent was consistency, and the fact that if we have policies, we need to be following them. And if we have bad policies, we need to identify them and fix them. And so this is a process to make that happen. And so I feel really good about where we're at. And again, we'll be doing a follow-up with this in August. Which then is going to lead, if I could, into our next topic, and I suggested we take a break first because the next presentation is going to be a little bit long too. But we really want to spend some time tonight to demonstrate to the board what is the work that is currently being done and what is the plan for the future to address the concerns that people have had about student safety, staff safety, just overall student-staff interaction and all those types of things. So Rachel and her team that she has here have put together a presentation, And it's going to be kind of a two-part presentation. She's going to have them talk about all the things that they've been planning, the things that they've been doing this past year, what we're doing to move to the future. And then I'm going to spend a little bit of time in talking about the money part of it and showing you how we're finding existing resources to make this happen within our dollars that we have. So having said that, I could turn it back to you. And if you want to go on break, we'll do that and come back and do the rest.
First of all, any questions for Dr. Schatz on the policy reviews, the proposed policies? John?
My day job is policies, and I'm one of the few people I know that enjoy policies and reading them and updating them, and they're important. They're very important, and to keep them living and updated is hard work, and it's unappreciated work. And I just wanted to let you know I appreciate all of the work that's going into this. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you, John. Anyone else? Any comments or questions? All right, we'll take a break and we'll be back at 6:45. And Dr. Schatz, do you want to introduce this whole effort, and Dr.
Sure.
Arkery will take over?
Thank you. Well, as I've mentioned before, over the year, there's been a lot of things going on in some of the different schools. And Rachel has been working and heading up a team of people that are specifically looking at addressing some of the concerns with student behaviors and how do we manage that and those types of things. And so there were some pilot programs going on throughout the year to try to see if some of these things would work. And so who we have here tonight are people that have been part of that. And so I'm going to have Rachel introduce this, and then there's a presentation that goes on with this. And when they're all finished, then we're going to talk a little bit about the budget side of it. So at this time, I'd introduce Rachel to do the presentation.
Great, thank you. And I do have a very large team, and we don't even have everyone here who's been part of this amazing effort this year. But as they come up, they will introduce who they are and what they've been working on this year and into the future. So as everyone is very aware, we have had some different changes in our student demographics and some of our, especially in our elementary schools, readiness for school and when it comes to behavior. A lot of our efforts have been focusing on, as you heard in the 5 buildings, all about academics and really meeting kids where they are and differentiating instruction to help those kids grow from wherever they come to us when they come to school. And what's happening is now with school readiness, necessarily with behaviors, we're seeing kids come in all different readiness, and they look differently when they come to us, and teachers just really aren't sure exactly what their role is and what they need to do to support students so they can learn by having appropriate behaviors. So this year, we really worked on our kids who were really making themselves known to us with behaviors. We know moving down the road that we are going to need to do something more universally and be prepared across the board to support all students, because even our great athletes need a coach. All kids need that continuous. I still need feedback on my behavior sometimes. Just ask my husband. So, and we talk about this, and it's not to make little of it. It's 3 to 5% of our kids, and that doesn't seem like much. But when you look at our elementary staffing, and we have 5,000 students, that's 150 to 200 kiddos. And as you heard in these reports today, we have more diversity in some buildings than in others. So in some of our sites, that might be 8% of our kids. And that does make a teacher's job difficult, and it does really make that onus on teachers who want to do what's best for all of our kids every day just a harder job. So we're really working on trying to support our teachers and to support our students, and really in the end to support our community. So we've done a lot of research, and when I say we, I really do mean our team that's behind me. This is not a new thing. Dr. Schatz has talked about this. This isn't just come on our radar this year. Brad Franklin has about 79% free and reduced population over at Jefferson. He's been working very closely with the neighborhood association. He's seen a lot of these challenging behaviors with kids, and they've been doing some great things. And Brad's been coming to the forefront with this for at least 2 years, saying, what can we do? We have to do more. These kids need to be at school. And we've been researching and having a lot of conversations, and we probably needed this push this year to really get ourselves moving in maybe a faster pace. So what we really focused on this year, and what I would call a seed project versus a pilot, it's something we know that's going to happen. We planted the seeds this year, we nurtured it, we watered it, we're watering it tonight. We're gonna give it some sunshine, and we'll expand this to make all of our kids in a great learning environment. So you'll see our 2 icons as we move through our presentation, that we're really focused on the matter of fact that we have to teach behaviors. That is our job as educators. In order for them to learn academically, they have to be able to have the behaviors to be successful in the classroom, and that it takes data. We can't just say this is working, not really sure why. That has to be data-based decision making, so we can grow this and sustain it with fidelity in other settings. So you'll see those icons throughout the presentation. I'm going to engage you a little bit in what we might do in an elementary classroom with having student engagement. I'm going to read this out loud, and when you see the blue, I want you to read along with me. So if a child doesn't know how to read, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to swim, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to multiply, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to drive, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to behave, it's a head scratcher, right? What do we do? Why is it hard to finish that last sentence? That's not what we've done for years in education, and we know in education changes like an iceberg. It's very, very slow. And when you're in the classroom every day facing these kids, you want an easy button. You want the quick fix, and it's just not there. And so the first thing our teachers need to do is to accept the fact that together we are going to reteach these behaviors, but they need the support to be able to know what does that look like and how do we do that. We talk about this all the time with our kiddos, that our teachers need to know our parents are sending their best. They're not keeping their good ones home. They're doing everything they can. We have our parents' treasures every day for 6 hours a day, and the onus is on us to be able to educate them in the best way we know how. And the onus on us is to help our teachers support those kiddos. So why do we need to develop a system for teaching behavior? In order for a child to learn, there has to be an environment that's conducive to learning. And if you have behaviors that are out of control with 3 to 5 kids in a classroom, it makes academics really hard. Procedures and routines. We preach them all of the time to our brand new teachers that until you have those in place, all of the content area doesn't matter. Patty talks about TSA since 9/11, all of the procedures and the routines that have been put into place when you're getting on an airplane. That makes things run smoothly. There's predictability. People know what to expect. It takes away that chaos so we can all get on the plane and get to our destination on time. Repetition is the key. And this is something that's very hard because we want to teach it once and then we want to move on. If we're going to teach a child something new, it takes 8 times for them to even begin to own that information. However, if we have kids come to us with behaviors that they've been doing their whole life, which may be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, for them to unlearn that habit or that behavior takes an average of 28 times. So you envision yourself being in a classroom of 22 kiddos and you have 3 who have to unlearn behaviors. That's a lot on our teachers. And that's why they're needing that support, and that's why they're needing all of the talent of the people behind me. So this year, we talked about our SEED project. We know this is going to take time. There isn't a quick fix. This pyramid should look somewhat familiar to you. When we've talked about MTSSA, which is academics, we have the tiers of support. If we start down on the bottom, the green is the universal. We call that tier 1. That's what we do for all kiddos, no matter what. That's what we can say. We can guarantee this is our curriculum. When it comes to behaviors, we really don't have that right now. We haven't had to have that. We have a lot of great culture climate things. We have teachers that are masterful at classroom management. But if we said across the board in Fargo Public Schools, do we have a universal curriculum for behavior? And the answer would be no. But we know we need to do that. But in this school year, we kind of did behavior triage. We really looked at those kiddos who really needed our support. Our tier 2, our targeted kids, and our tier 3, our intensive kiddos, that we knew they weren't getting great phone calls or reports from school because their behavior was prohibiting them from being successful. So from this point forward, Dr. Schatz talked about that we're going to talk at the end about moving forward into next year. But in this part of the presentation, we're really talking about what was our SEED project for 2016-17, and we focused on those targeted and intensive kiddos. So we had 3 goals within the SEED project that we worked on, and the team's going to share some of the specifics of what that looked like at each of our implementation sites. But the first goal was really that we were teaching and reinforcing those skills. That's a new thing. We need to teach it, and we need to reinforce it so kiddos know that's what we're expecting from them and the likelihood of them to do it again. The goal 2 was to really draw on those relationships of professional colleagues. We have the SWIFTs, we have the mental health facilitators, we have the social workers, we have great SROs in our buildings. Depending on where you are within our community, there's a lot of community support. They're aware we have issues and they want to help us. And we've done some really great things to get some collaboration to make this a community-wide effort. And the third goal is to really look at the specifics of the challenging behaviors of these kiddos and what are the conditions that are prompting or reinforcing that so we can either stop or continue the positive or the negative behavior with the kids specifically. I know that you've heard about these positions before from Dr. Schatz, and I'm just going to give you just a quick overview of what they are and where these people are residing at this point. These were new positions that were part of the SEED project this year at 3 of our sites. So on the far left side, we had a positive behavior technician, In the middle, we had the positive behavior interventionists. And on the right side, we consult with the BCBA, which is a board-certified behavior analyst. And you'll see the icons on the bottom corners of the screen. These support both of the research findings. We really collected data to say that this was working or not working, what's working, what isn't. And on the left-hand side, these people really were right at this point teaching our children, but eventually we want to be coaching teachers on how we teach and support behaviors. So our positive behavior technicians, these are within our para staffing line. They take a 40-hour online training, and then they are coached and observed from our BCBA. They really work on nurturing and focusing on these behaviors and focusing on relationships with the kiddos that are in that targeted and intensive. They're the go-to person to really say that this is how the day went. They might work on charting the data, and they're really trying to just be that support to make it a positive place for the child to return the next day, no matter how good or how bad the day might have been. The interventionists, we have 2 of those working at 2 of our sites. We've had 1 all year and 1 just since spring break. They only provide direct services to students that are identified through MTSSB on their caseload. We've wanted to be really careful that this isn't just the new go-to. Brittany's having difficulty, so I'm going to send her down to the intervention room. If we do that, we're going to have this room that's just a holding pen and kids aren't learning. So we've really wanted to make sure that they're at caseload. Again, it's 3 to 5%. So at Jefferson, I think at any time, Elena had 8 to 10 kids on her caseload. It was manageable, it was scheduled, and the data shows that the kids were achieving. The difference between the interventionist and the technician is the interventionist will likely sit in on those MTSSB teams. They will communicate with parents. Elena does a breakfast program. They may even be out in the parking lot in the morning encouraging the kiddos to get out of the car and take that first step to get into school. They have some visual schedules for kids. They'll do things where we know that recess is a tough time, so how can I help support either before or after recess to make you successful? And our last new role is Allie, who is not one of our employees. She owns Changing Behaviors, and she is a BCBA, and she's been vital in this process and will be as we continue forward. She supports our behavior technicians and our behavior interventionists as we grow this program, probably quicker than she'd like us to. She will be meeting with them on a monthly basis. She'll be out observing them, giving them feedback. She is our direct link between the district office and what's happening in the schools, because we know we want something sustainable. We want it to look similar so that we can help support that from where we are amongst all of our sites. She creates student plans. That is what she is highly qualified to do. So if we get those intensive kiddos, and we've had buildings really trying to problem solve and support what's happening with the child, and they can't figure it out, Allie will come in and do an observation, and she'll actually write up the behavior plan, and then she will help the behavior interventionist or the technician to carry out that plan with students. She does competency checks, so she can come in and be that second set of eyes and ears and give feedback to what's happening in a non-emotional way. Because whether we want it or not, when a child is having those issues, it's really hard to stay calm and to think in the front of your brain. And she's also really great at collecting data, analyzing it, and helping us make decisions to move forward. And I need to introduce Allie because she is not presenting tonight. So this is Allie Smith. Hello. She's with Changing Behaviors, and you will see more of her as we move forward, but she's been just invaluable to our team. All right. Brad Franklin and Elena are next to share some of the goals at Jefferson.
Good evening, I'm Brad Franklin, principal at Jefferson.
And I'm Elena Johnson, behavior interventionist at Jefferson.
Elena was probably one of my best hires this year, so. As Rachel mentioned, the last couple of years we've been talking about the possibility of really looking at behaviors. We've worked really hard. Laura Sokolowski, our counselor, our team at Jefferson, we have a PBIS team that meets monthly. So we did a lot of work during morning meetings, so in the classroom, trying to teach social emotional behaviors and strategies for our students. And you've heard a lot about MTSS tonight on the academic side. So at Jefferson, we're a title school. So our students that have difficulty in the core classroom with math or reading, we have services for them in the title math, title reading during the day. And if they don't succeed there, then they have special ed. when you look at behavior, we had the core classroom, and then we had special ed. And our special ed teachers were very taxed, and their caseload was to where they really couldn't be consistent with these students. So we looked at what would be an alternative. So we looked at the behavior interventionist, and really, we really follow the MTSS model just like academics. Elena works with a core of 8 to 10 students this year. We have a MTSS team that's specifically for behavior. So we meet weekly and really monitor these plans. We come up with individual plans for each student, and we really partner with the classroom teacher to support them, provide guidance for those students in the classroom, and it's really a team effort. So I'll let Elena share what she does with those students in her classroom and what those plans look like.
So after I get the kids, the first thing we start working on is their zones of regulation, because a lot of them don't even know why they're feeling what they're feeling or what it is that they're feeling. So we really work on identifying those emotions and finding ways for those outlets for some of them. We work on what's triggering the behavior, so then we can figure out how are we going to change your environment so that you can start managing and being successful in the classroom. Some of them need the visual schedule. They need kind of a point sheet to help them be on track throughout the day, and some of them have been weaned off of those by the end of the year because they now can do it all by themselves independently. I'm helping some of the teachers create areas in their classrooms so that the kids have a safe, calm environment in their room so they don't have to flee or try to go to me. They can just go to that spot in their room and stay in the classroom and still be learning. And the one thing that has worked a lot with some of the kids is creating personal goals for themselves. So it's not the MTSS goals that we have for them. It's what do they really want to work on for themselves. And then I created a reward system for them so they can really take ownership of their behavior and really start changing and being successful in all areas of their life.
One area we spend a lot of time recently on is wraparound services, we call them. We have our MTSS B team within the school building. We have EL social worker, other supports within our building. But more importantly, outside of our building, we work closely with Chip Ammerman, Director of Cass County Social Services. I know him outside of our professional life, and we were just talking how there are quite a few referrals from his office visiting Jefferson to support maybe our parents and students. So about 5 years ago, we started the Jefferson area neighborhood, and it's really, we call them connectors. So it could be anybody that really serves the families and students around the Jefferson neighborhood. So it could be mental health providers, it was daycare. We have the landlord, we try to get the landlord from the trailer park. Community homes, we have the manager of that building. We have housing representatives from the city of Fargo. So we meet probably 3 times a year and really try to be proactive. How can we work together rather than having it to be a referral to social services? How can we be in the front end of it? So we try to really provide those wraparound services that we can't provide at Jefferson, but we can as a community. So we've been doing that for about 5 years. It's been very successful. And I think it really is this whole process this year, the last one, encouraging parents and other family members to participate. It's just really, prior to this, the relationship wasn't always, I had a good relationship with the parent, but sometimes it was like, you need to come to school, he's not being successful today, so it got to be somewhat tension. And this year, it was really, we saw these students really be successful. You see data here in a second. And I shared, we both knew exactly who the parent was, but he was a burly guy, and I always got along with him, but he wasn't always happy, I wasn't always happy. But we were working as a team, and this year's student, he made tremendous success. End of the year, I don't know that he really needed Elena and her services, but we kept him on the plan, and he kind of came to me and Elena a couple of times with tears in his eyes, just seeing the success in his student. And I knew then that we got to continue this because that's what it's all about, is helping the kids. And it was pretty touching for me. And now when I go up for the bus duty, I just look at him and we just have conversations like a normal parent every day. And his kid comes out and he's got a smile on his face, and he's got a reward from Elena because he's successful in math, reading, and emotionally in the classroom. So it's been really good.
So after I get the kids, the first thing we start working on is their zones of regulation, because a lot of them don't even know why they're feeling what they're feeling or what it is that they're feeling. So we really work on identifying those emotions and finding ways for them to be able to
I believe if I turn the slide, I'm next. Oh, I am. Hi, Patty Cummings, Director of Special Education. I appreciate the fact that Brad shared that story, and you've heard a lot tonight, and I've heard the word difficult, and I get it. I mean, that's a feeling thing. I want to let you know that I prefer to think about it as complex. Nobody, as Rachel said, nobody holds back the best and hides it. So it's not that these people are bad people or difficult people, it's complex. So we want to make sure that as we continue our goals that we're identifying specific behaviors and the challenging behaviors that are presented in front of us, and the conditions that prompt and reinforce it. And when we have people who the people that are sitting behind me who are not teachers by trade, I want to let you know it's because they come with a specific skill set that can help teachers with this. So as we look to concretely describe those challenging behaviors, that way we can look at the intensity and the frequency at which they're happening, so we can make sure that we get the best intervention possible, would be that third goal that we're having. You've heard a lot about data tonight. I want to let you know, just as John shared that he is into policy, there's many of us into data, and we love it because it helps support what we know in our hearts. And it's one thing to to tell what's in our hearts, but when we can show for our stakeholders what is really going on with the numbers, that's when we can really talk with some knowledge and pride behind it. So this is a sheet from Zones of Regulation, a student who was at, I believe, Jefferson in the fall. What I want you to note about this is that there are things in each of the sections, but there's some stuff written, but not a lot. And what this training does, so Elena, any of the other PBIs would work with, is talking about what kind of behavior I had as a student, what zone was I in. What you might need to know is that there is no bad zone. This is about feelings and identifying. It's not whether I'm bad or I'm good. I am in a red zone. I'm not able to think right now. So was my behavior expected or unexpected? The reasons why. I want you to note those squares with the tool. Those are the tools in the children's toolbox. This student, I don't know if it was a male or a female, but I'll just say he had fidget. It's an all right thing. It's one thing. And then he had an explanation of what he could do a little bit better next time. So when you look after having about a year of being worked with, the more complex and detailed information this child came up with himself. So the behaviors, he was able to describe his behaviors better. Still, the zone was the same. Again, we're not assigning judgment to that zone. It's about recognizing it. And then I really love the tools in the toolbox. I can ignore, I can walk away. And the third one, I can belly breathe. So we've got a new skill we would never have had before. And then I really like the fact that he can come up with more about what can I do next time. So really this is, as Rachel said earlier, giving the students the tools. So when we look at the different kind of behaviors, and you'll see some of the charts, I want you to focus. We have some non-preferred results, removal from class, and fleeing. These are two things that I know that I probably don't need to say this, but I'm going to. When a student is not in the classroom, they're not able to learn. And so it is counterintuitive to think that by removing a child from a classroom, that they're going to be able to increase their learning. But I will also say that those feelings that come from anxieties and emotions, teachers feel that too. We as adults feel these same things. This doesn't go away as we're adults. We just learn to cope with it better. So you'll see those two non-preferred items being charted, and then the interventions alongside the direct teaching are giving children scheduled breaks, teaching them to use break cards, and then the in-class support that might be provided by a PBI or a PBT. One of the charts, so you will see that there was a high number in October and November of the child A being removed from class, but fleeing the class was not far behind. Fleeing is part of fight and flight, and that puts you in your non-cognitive mode. So even if you didn't flee, you're probably not processing in the classroom. So the high removals, the high fleeing, after intervention and installing requested breaks, that number plummeted, which means that child was in the classroom learning more. Awesome. And if you look in the lower right, this is just, I thought, the good graph of the time out of class. You can see October and November, of course, when we talked about them fleeing and be removed. But look at the rest. That child was in that classroom a lot more of the time. Again, another different student. Fleeing was big on this child's list. And we give the implementation of the direct teaching and then the requested breaks. And again, we see that come down. And the time out of class, we may want to continue this, of course, but it definitely went the direction that we want to see it go. So now you will hear from a member of Voices of the Field.
Good evening. I'm Nicole Peterson. I'm the behavior interventionist from EdClap.
And Jennifer Schuldeis, principal at EdClap. And in addition to the numerical data that we are keeping on students, we are also collecting perception data. And there are some quotes that you will see on the screen, and I will let you read those. However, the quotes are representative of some common themes that we hear from staff once we have started the PBI and PT. PBTs working with students. And so this is from an Eagles classroom teacher, but the common theme is we identify a time in the day that might be a trigger for students, and we do something to change that. So for this particular student, the morning time was chaotic. It was a tough way to start the day. So just by providing a quieter, calm, predictable environment, that student is more ready and able to learn in the classroom. Here's another common theme. This one's from an EdClap classroom teacher. A lot of times our students realize that they need to be out of the classroom because emotionally they're just not able to handle it at the moment. And when a student is not on a plan, a lot of times their only way to get out of the classroom is to act out or get in trouble. When a student is on a behavior plan, we can give them some control, recognizing when they may need to leave the class for a short amount of time, and then we are able to get them back to class sooner so we can have some of that great data that Patty just shared with you. And here's another one from a school counselor. And this one really deals with the idea that when we have people who can work with our students on these behaviors, it gives some of our other specialists in the building more time to do more things on their job descriptions. So our counselors, for example, are able to be much more proactive. They're able to get to their scheduled guidance lessons and their one-on-one counseling with students because they're not always having to be in that reactive mode of helping students who are in crisis at the moment. I know I can echo that. Since Nicole has started at EdClap, there were definitely some times in the day where I was able to spend more of my time giving attention to students who are doing the right thing than reacting to students who are needing my assistance at the time. So those are some common things that we have seen and heard in the short time that the programs have been in place. And one from Eagles principal, Tanya Lingle. She's looking toward the future. I'm looking forward to seeing this position include a component of coaching for certified and non-certified staff. All good athletes have coaches, and amazing school staff need coaches too. So we do coach our teachers in how to better teach reading. We coach our students, our teachers, in how to better teach math. And now we will also be looking at how we can coach our students or our teachers on how to better support those behaviors as well.
Good evening. I'm Tanya Lingle, building principal at Eagles.
And I'm April Schmidt. I'm the behavior technician.
Just like Brad said, April has been with us since the month of March, so just about 10 weeks when you take out spring break. And she is an incredible addition to the Eagles staff. And I think that, looking at our quotes that we have from the students both at Jefferson and at Eagles, this is why we are doing this work. This is why we need to do this work, to empower our kids to make decisions that will help them to be successful in the classroom. So you can see that looking at this Jefferson student feels that they have a safe place and they can handle being in class. An Eagle student, the thing that jumps out at me in this one, helping to be a great leader. These kids are leaders, and they just don't have the skills yet. and they are developing those skills by working with our PBIs and PBTs. And so we need to see that they have those capabilities, and we need to have high expectations for them, and we need to help them reach those expectations. At Jefferson, a number of students, Brad has shared, become self-managers, understanding when they need to have a break and need to leave the classroom, and are able to identify that, which is pretty amazing. And belly breathing, you know, we can laugh about that as elementary, but, you know, as we were talking before, just getting calm enough to be able to share this information with you tonight, I found myself taking those deep breaths, right? So we might not say that to one another, but we certainly know those things that we use to get calm in a situation. And so being able to teach our students how to do that is so critical. Because we all see every night on the news situations where people are not belly breathing in situations that they maybe should have. And so if we certainly can be teaching our students how to do that, they are then going to carry those skills with them, which will help all of us in the long run. Thank you.
All right, I just want to say one more thank you to these, everyone behind me, and just some of the stories that they have shared are just so heartfelt, and they are making a huge difference. We were debriefing over at Eagles one day, and I think Nicole had said, talking about some data of a student, she said, I really miss him. I'm glad he's not coming to see me anymore, but I really miss him. So these relationships and the difference we're making for these kids in their lives and for their futures is pretty huge. So, moving ahead, what are we going to do? What's our next step? Thinking again that this year we really worked at those tier 2, tier 3 kids, but we still have that green layer of universal. What are we doing for all? We are really needing to proceed with caution. There isn't a quick fix. There isn't an easy button for you. So what I want you to think about, and we're going to get you up and moving just a little tiny bit to keep your brains focusing here, and you to think about a simple routine you do every day. You drive. Have you ever broken the speed limit? If you have, everyone stand up with Linda. If you've broken the speed limit, stand up, please. Have you ever gotten a speeding ticket? Stay standing. Oh, you're the lucky ones. There's a theme right here. Mm-hmm. So everybody standing has received a speeding ticket. You've been caught and punished for breaking rules. I'm standing as well. Now, if you still speed regularly or on occasion, even though you've gotten a ticket, sit down. No, Linda, they still speed. No. If you still speed, sit down. Yep. So, yeah. So you two don't speed. You always follow the speed limit? Cruise control? Wow. These are the rarity. They're not in our 3 to 5%. Okay, so think about that scenario. We're all adults. We all know the rule. We all have broken it. Some of us have been caught, and we still keep the same behavior, hoping for different results, not consequences. Look at the sign here. The speed limit is telling us what the rule is. How fast would you be going if you were driving and you saw the sign? Tell someone next to you quickly. Okay, really, that should have been a really quick answer, right? 45. But there was a whole lot of conversation and validation about why you were not going 45 is what I'm assuming. For those of you who are not going 45, if you saw this in your rearview mirror, would it change your answer? At that moment. There is a place for authority, right? In schools, we call that administration or principals. We've just proven by all those people who sat down that that doesn't work. It's not sustainable. It's short term. You can get out of school suspension. You can get detention, you can have your mom called, you can get grounded at home. You can be like my son and have your door taken off for most of your adolescent years, and you still don't behave. So you're an example of challenging behaviors. He doesn't watch these on TV, so. So now put yourself in the same scenario. You have a very good friend, family member, it's probably your grandma. They do not like speeding. They think speeding is the worst thing in the world, and they judge people that speed because there are rules, and rules are meant to be followed. Now you are driving in that same road and going 45 miles an hour is the speed limit. But you have grandma sitting next to you. How fast are you going? 39. What is the difference between authority and respect? What we're doing this year with our PBTs, our PBIs, our BCBAs, I love to rattle those off. We're building relationships with kids built on respect, built on trust. And that is going to be a sustainable, long-term reason for these kiddos to know how to socially and behave and build positive relationships and eventually be our doctors, our nurses, our teachers. Because punishment doesn't work. And that's what this whole program has been about this year, and that's the message we all collectively need to send to our families and to our kiddos, and that we need to reinforce that those relationships are not replaceable and they can't be fixed by a principle or a policy. So moving forward, I'm just going to fill you in on where we are with human resources. So our current status this year of our interventionists, some who were here tonight to share with us, we had 3 FTEs. Moving into next year, Dr. Schatz will share where this money is coming from, but it is not new dollars that were taken from somewhere. Something came out of off the plate or is not happening to create funding for additional. And as Tanya said, only one of the PBIs was in place all year. Elena was hired at the beginning of the year, and the other interventionists were brought on at Kennedy and Washington to support our ED rooms and at Ed Clapp around spring break, so 10 weeks. So we're moving from those 3 to 6 for next school year. Our technicians, we had 2 this year. And we will be moving to 7 for next school year. And then also within this are our administrative interns. We have 3.5 this year, and next year we'll be moving to 5. How are we deciding this? Years ago with our intern program, it was really based on numbers. You hit 600 kids, you got an intern. We've really looked at a rubric this year where we look at enrollment as a factor, but we look at our EL population, our IEPs, special ed staff, number of evaluations due, if it's a split campus, we look at those behavior referrals. So based on that rubric, we ranked all of our schools, and then we created a checklist to say, do we feel like we have enough comprehensive support to be able to not only support our kiddos, but to support our teachers to really make these things happen. So this is showing next year of those positions that we have in place, where the funding is coming from. A really nice thing with ESSA is it has loosened up some of those opportunities for us to not be supplanting. So because we utilized the rubric the way we did, we are able to take some things out of title funding and take the same thing out of general fund because of the rationale of why we're putting those supports in place. So that's just showing where that funding is coming from. And as Dr. Schatz said, he's going to share that with you in more detail. Moving forward, we've talked about the 3 prongs of this approach, and one has been human resources. Dr. Schatz is going to talk about policy, but into that universal tier 1, the green layer, Patty's going to talk about professional development moving forward.
So as we look at, with the pyramid and the tiers, universal, we did start with MTSSB and going through a whole district-wide review of what we could do and a little digging into where we need aid. I would tell you that this big umbrella of behavior, and it is a big umbrella, we are really attacking it from both sides of that pyramid. So as we're building and putting in the triage, we are building a framework for all students. So as we address the school-wide behavior issues, and we're using this data with our school improvement teams on teachers or schools advanced ed, we are hearing more from schools about saying, what can we put into our plans to help us to continuously improve in the area of behavior as well? We want to make sure that we use the data that we're collecting to be a part of that decision-making process and monitor the outcomes that we have. We may or may not adopt, and when I see the word packaged intervention, we always want to go with research-based. In the world of behavior intervention, so much of what you're going to hear out there is promising practice. This isn't just a new foray for Fargo Public Schools. This is across the nation. So as we develop promising practices into those more research-based, we want to make sure that what we are doing has that data behind it. I invited Kim Myers here. I'll just have you raise your hand. She is going to be the coordinator for MTSSB. So she's going to help keep and glue these parts together with the rest of the group. So a lot of professional development time is going to go in to build foundations to understand and to give our adults tools to use. We have for a number of years done nonviolent crisis intervention, CPI. They are what we might you consider with de-escalation, and sometimes when a student is going to cause harm to self or others, we might need to put a student in a hold. We prefer the de-escalation training. For years, we have trained special education staff, paraprofessionals. This is a good thing. We want to up the number of trainers we have so we can make sure that when the people set foot into the schools, they are ready to go with this training. We also want to increase de-escalation training for regular education teachers, because let's face facts, that's where the escalation is probably going to happen. So we need to give our teachers more skills with that. We have included with the new North Dakota Century Code on having mental health training. We have adopted trauma training. We have 6 trainers, five or six trainers in that. We want to increase the number of those. We have heard tremendously good feedback from our schools who have gone through trauma training on how much the teachers like, I never knew that. So we are touching points that are new to the teachers. Envoy, we have some pilots going on at Lewis and Clark and Lincoln. Envoy is a nonverbal cues, nonverbal behaviors that teachers, adults would use in order to help manage. I know that both the principals at Lewis and Clark and Lincoln have said they've seen significant drops in referrals to the office for behaviors just by having teachers use nonverbal yardsticks. We have an opportunity. Rory Beal came in a grant-supported effort of really digging down into that trauma-sensitive schools. So the schools that you see listed at Clapp, Eagles, Jefferson, Carl Ben Eielson, Ben Franklin, and South are going to engage in that. They are schools that have gone through all 6 units of the trauma training, and so now they're ready to dig even deeper down into that and drill down. The teacher-child interaction training, that's that coaching piece. So we're now engaged with having a discussion with a business starting in Minneapolis, hoping to include that, and it's a really cool real-time feeding system to teachers to be able to hear what they should and should not be doing, or asking them to reflect on what they're doing in the moment. Behavior analyst training, as our BCBAs and our PBIs and PBTs. Behavior analysts, that is a very specific and narrow slice. So what we're doing and what you've heard about is part of that narrow slice. It's only one portion of what we're doing. And making sure that those people have time for positive behavior intervention collaboration and being able to affect more of the school system, not stay within their homes. We want to make sure that everything that we're doing is aligning to probably more than these policies, but with these in specific. So we want to make sure that what we have in place is working in tandem with our student restraint, the conduct and discipline, and our employee safety. I threw this in as for the principals, but I thought it was worthy of leaving in. Why can't our teachers do this? It is a very specific skill. So if you have a pet who's ever torn up a pillow, and you said bad puppy and put him in a cage and thought that you were teaching them that chewing up is a bad behavior, you may not realize that you inadvertently reinforced something else. So dog chews up pillow, bad puppy, but what the puppy's saying is there, yay, cuddle time. So by chewing up the pillow, he got cuddles. So now he believes that chewing up is good, being put in the crate is bad. And even though we're human beings, but we are of the animal condition, right? We use this in adults. If any of you are Big Bang Theory watchers, Sheldon trained Penny by giving her chocolate every time she did something well. We as adults get paid for doing our job. So this kind of stuff works across all. All right. Any questions for the team?
This is amazing. Any questions, Dinah?
I don't really have a question. I guess I just feel fortunate because before this became a really big issue a few months ago that everybody was talking about, Lincoln and Ed Clapham were my schools this year, and I was fortunate enough to see a lot of what you've talked about in action and here at a grassroots level before some of the other board members and before it became or not that I'm saying you weren't aware of it, but the rest of the broader community became aware of it. So I just kudos to all of you and to those of you who have been involved in the seed projects. And I saw firsthand, being in the schools, what a difference it does make. So I think we're in the right direction, and I'm interested in seeing how we make this happen all across the district. So just wanted to say thank you.
Great. And anyone else? John?
One thing kind of towards the end there that caught my ear was that we're not the only ones on the cutting edge of this, but this is a nationwide problem. There's not a lot of research we're finding or promising practices. In working through this, are we working with any research institutions or partnering with our teaching colleges in the state or in the region or in the nation to turn what we are learning into research that can be shared?
I know. Well, the quick answer is, probably not as much as we should. But what I will say is, a couple of years ago, Department of Public Instruction gave a huge directive to special education and talked about SIP. It's a strategic intervention plan, and surrounded from stakeholders getting together and saying what is the one thing that we need to improve, and that's behavior. And so when we may not have the research people coming to us, but we're investigating what's out there. So maybe that's next on the horizon. Yeah.
Say something now? Okay. Go ahead.
So John, I want to address that question too, and that is, this is labor intensive, and this, like I say, has been going on for a while, and there has been stuff going on, and it's evidence tonight. And so this whole notion that everybody's sitting on their hands and hoping for the best and doing nothing is just not true. And so, the work that Brad Franklin has been doing for 5 years over at Jefferson is absolutely impressive and over the top. And when you see a guy get up and talk the way he did tonight and the commitment that he has to his neighborhood school, that's impressive. And so, unfortunately, things happen. So you have an incident. So does that put a cloud over everything that's been done for 5 years to build to the capacity that they currently have to address things in their school that 5 years ago were across the board, and none of it was probably being handled in a way that was appropriate? And so I can't find a better professional in a community school that has done more than Brad on this issue. And so unfortunately, because of the incident, it has caught in the public eye, and now there's this Band-Aid that you see on TV every time they show any one of these things. It's got Jefferson sitting up there on the screen. It's just not what's been going on in that building, and he's got many, many... And he's got many, many staff members doing tremendous work at that building. And so what do? We learn from that. And so Rachel and Brad and the team started talking, and they were saying, this is working. We need to duplicate this. And so the seeds were planted this year. And unfortunately, it turned into a media circus here in May, but this was all in the works. And so there's some comments I need to make about all this. There's implicit bias in how we look at discipline in the educational business. There are people who still feel that for every bad act, there needs to be some kind of discipline, and that has to be punitive. The research is extremely clear on brain research and everything else that just doesn't work long term. That's the old way of thinking. Kick the kid out of class, suspend the kid, make them do detention, all these types of things. Does not work. And so what do? You change behavior. How do you flip a school, the character and the behavior of a school? Is you develop processes and procedures for consistency, common language, expectations, and everybody does the same thing. And that's what this does. It creates that continuum of common language and expectations within a building. But that takes time to do. It took 4 years to flip a high school I was in. 4 years, 4 full years to get it to happen. And it happened. So I've been there, I've been down this road. I did this in the 90s when things were far worse than they are today in some of the schools that I was around. And so I just have to say those things. You need 90% buy-in in the building. And what we're talking about here is huge change in thinking about how we work with kids and how we discipline kids and how everybody has ownership in that. And so if people don't want to get on board, it's going to be difficult to make some of these things happen. So they're going to have to be open. The other thing I'm going to say is that this can no longer be you guys versus us environment, because that's what's going on. It's not my problem, it's your problem to deal with. It's everybody's problem to deal with. Administrators are frustrated, teachers are frustrated, parents are frustrated, superintendents are frustrated, okay? Everybody's in this together. And it can't be, well, we'll just put some words on a piece of paper, or we'll put a policy in place, and it's all just going to be fine. It just is not. And so everybody has to be at the table on this. We have already done many other things, too, in our district. You look at what we've done at the secondary level, in particular with the student wellness family facilitators. $300,000 have been committed to that. We restructured resources last year to make that happen this year. Those people are serving a ton of kids throughout the district, okay, beyond just the school day. What we're proposing now with what we have sitting before us and expanding is $1 million addition to that effort. And it's about $1 million. So what I have before you is the green part, and that is, what are the costs to all this? And what are the positions, and who are the things, and what are the things we're doing? When you look at all the yellow, that's associated to this effort right here. And when you look at and that's about, it's about $850,000. If you take out the $94,000 for high school staffing, which we increased because the need was there for the number of sections we had. And Bob did a tremendous job this year. He started out at 8 FTE. I said, you can't go there. And he got it down to 1.18 of additional FTEs that were needed. And this is and what we're sharing with you tonight is very operational. This is how we go through and figure out how we make all this work, right? And so Bob came up with 1.18, so that's about a $94,000 cost. All the other ones are people and things that we're doing to make adjustments to have the supports in the buildings that people are asking for. Additional interns, additional technicians and interventionists, and all of the folks that we were listening about tonight, talking about Kim taking over as the MTSS coordinator of all this. Somebody has to coordinate it all. Comes with great expertise in working with challenging children, special needs kids, and will be a wonderful person overseeing all of this. And then you look down further, some of the things that we did, Brittany, for example, in her department. Every time we have an opening now at the district office, we review the position, we review the entire department, and we say, since somebody was here for 40 years or 30 years, do we continue on with that position, or do we look at it and make it something different? So she rolled up her sleeves, and so you'll see the offset of this down in the pink, but she looked at reorganizing the groups of people that she had. This shows the cost of that. When you go down on the bottom, you can see the reductions that occurred there, and we're saving about $26,000 by restructuring 3 positions in the payroll office. And so, get to the bottom, we're looking at about $1 million of adjustments and things that we're doing throughout our budget, but it's about $850,000 in addition for these programs and this kind of stuff. Go down into the pink part. Where did the dollars come from? When Bob and I talked about, along with Rachel, when Rachel first became assistant soup for elementary, we talked about what could the structure be of teaching and learning. And when we restructured that and Bob came forward with a plan, we put these facilitators in place. But the idea was that we weren't going to have all those facilitators be there forever. What we wanted to build was capacity with teachers to become course captains. And so we are now starting to wean down from the facilitator program and putting it back in the hands of teachers to work with teachers on professional development, curriculum development, whatever it is. And so that's what you're seeing is a downsizing of some of the facilitators there. So that comes to us at a cost savings. We made some adjustments with a library media assistant position. Moved that to 10 months. There was an additional downsizing there, so that was some dollars. I went to Todd Olson and I said, Todd, I said, we continue to watch your budgets. We look at what you have, and you continually keep, and Todd has been tremendous with his budgets and keeping his budgets in line. And I said, Todd, I need $50,000. So he went in and he said, you know, we can make that happen, and these are the areas that he's going to make that happen in. So then we look at technology. Went to Bill Westrick, said, Bill, can you find $50,000? And there's some things that Bill and Brock have been able to do to help support technology and the equipment and things. And so Bill said, yeah, I can probably find that, so that's what he did. And then you look at other areas where we made some adjustments and things with federal programs and federal dollars plus general fund dollars. You look at, again, when you look at the eliminate EL administrative assistant, EL para, that was a restructuring, so there wasn't a loss there. A restructuring and how we did some staffing. And so the downsizing at Ben Franklin in the office, they came to us and they said, you know what, we think the one secretary is retiring. When we hire the new one, we think we can go 9 months versus 10 months. So there was savings there. So as you start to piece all these things together and then go further down in the business services area, Trollwood went to Kathy and said, Kathy, the plan has always been that we need to continue to fundraise more so we can offset the costs. And so this year we gave her a targeted goal of $70,000. We went to operations and maintenance and we said, you know what, we can find $200,000 there that we can pull out to be able to support this. Supplies, Brock and his team looked at that and said, you know what, we can go at 121 and nobody's going to know the difference. And so equipment is still a pending number, but what you'll see is that we've been able to come where we're already within that $76,000 of the offsets of what we're going to do and what we're going to not do. And when you look at all these things, we're going to be just fine by shifting these dollars to do this and having this kind of impact. So I wanted it to be implicitly clear today with you as a board, with other people who are interested in watching or listening, that there is a massive effort that is now going to be launched to take on these issues. And so this is the resource side. We've talked about the policy side. And more importantly, and I do believe our way out of this is training. And that is people have to be open to the idea of training, and they have to be open to the idea of using the knowledge that they gain to manage these scenarios and these situations. And we will find our way in a much better place after a while. But again, we will still have the individual incidents. We will still have the occasional something. But I think that we're on a plan and a path that's going to correct this. And so I'm very pleased with all the work that's been done, all the thinking that's being done on this. And as I told you before, when we get presented with a problem, what do? We roll up our sleeves and we try to find a solution. This is what we believe is our best solution. So if you have any questions about this piece of it, this would be the end of our presentation. I got to tell you, Rachel has been a tremendous leader in this. And the one thing I really like about Rachel is that when we have an issue, she becomes content knowledgeable about that issue. And then she knows how to organize it. She knows how to bring people together. And she knows how to put a plan together. And so this has happened over a pretty short period of time when you look at this kind of major shift. And so tremendous work. So thank you.
You know, the thing that really was so stunning to me tonight was to hear everybody's language is so student positive and student centered, which is, you know, for, you know, those of us old school folks here, it's such a 180 in thinking, you know, away from the punitive thing. And, you know, we're the in-between people between the district and the general public, the 9 of us here. And it seems like part of our job as well is to help communicate however we can, but just first of all in our understanding, which was why this was so important tonight, that difference. Because all of our lives, even when we had those kids in our classrooms when we were kids, it was those kids, those troublemaker kids, just get them out of here and life would be so much sweeter. And to hear those kids being referred to as these are kids who first need to learn how to identify what emotion they're feeling. I mean, when I heard Elena say that, I wanted to have you come up at the time, the moment's probably passed, but to describe what that even means. you know, to someone who's not even fluent in their own emotions, was just so revealing. And then to hear how that spun through what everybody had to say about behavior is something that we teach, and respect is kind of the bait, the reward, and the way that that will eventually work in the end, and then hear the success story is so inspiring. And so I know it will be challenging. When you say we need, you know, buy-in of at least 90%, that's when we're sitting in these sessions and conferences, and they say before change will happen, don't spend your time on that 10% that will never come along with you. But if you get to a certain percentage, you've got a tipping point and you've made the difference. So I just cannot express the gratitude for the work you've done, but the time that you put in to help us understand it as well. And congratulations to all of you. This is inspiring. And we'll invest in it, as you can tell, but don't lose faith. Any other questions or comments? Yes, David.
I really think what you people are doing is going to make a difference. I think you're going to see more and more, maybe I should say less and less, of a 5% population. The issue I think that we can't forget about is the fact that the parents, our public who we serve, and the teachers who we've heard from in negotiations this year are not forgetting about those other 95% of the students too. I know, Patty, you made the comment that when a student is in the room, they're not learning, but maybe when they are in the room, the other 19 kids in that room are not learning. And I think that's what we have to convey to the public, that we're doing everything in what you're doing will make a difference. Absolutely. 10 years from now, the atmosphere is going to be completely different. But what we have to do, I feel, is convey to the public that we have a safe environment now, and those kids that are in the room will be safe. I couldn't be more proud of what you're doing, but I think that these other issues still have to be addressed, and the people, the general public has to know that our schools that their student is coming to school and they're going to be completely safe.
Good point. Dr. Schatz, you had a thought on that?
Yeah, and I would agree with you 100%. The key issue here, though, is this is the most complex issue that we will deal with in the next 5 years. Curriculum, all those other things, those are all things. This here, you're dealing with human beings, and you're dealing with a public school system where we take everybody who shows up on our doorstep, regardless of readiness, home life, socioeconomics, whatever it might be. And the bottom line is the law says you have to have them there. And so you can't just say, well, we're going to remove certain kids and they'll never be back again. There's ways to remove people temporarily, but they're back again. So how do you build the capacity to change behavior so that when the behavior comes back, that behavior has been tweaked enough to be able to be in the classroom, right? And so this is a systems-wide approach beyond school districts. It's community too. The lack of resources for mental health things, the lack of resources for parents to be able to afford some of the resources available to them, the lack of the legislature to change the insurance laws for autistic kids to be able to receive the training that we know works when they're 3 and 4 years old so that their behaviors are better under control. I mean, this is just way more than the school district. But what my emphasis is tonight is that we as a school district have to be together. We can't be picking on each other. Because if we pick on each other and we don't work together and it's us against you and me and her and him, we won't be able to move forward and do what we can do to make a difference. And so that's what's got to happen. We have to get over this thing and move forward. And that's the message I'm going to carry forward as superintendent. Give this a chance. When the training shows up, go to it. Be involved with it. Use the training. Don't just look at it as another professional development event that I have to go to, because that's my fear. Or we have these folks now in the building, they say, oh, you just send the kids to them because they're not my kids. No, that isn't going to cut it. It's learn how to work with the kids. That's why those people are there, to help guide you with that and to provide supports to you and to provide supports to those kids so we can tweak the behavior, make the behavior enough so that they can be successful in classroom. that works. I've done this before in my career. I know how to do this stuff myself. I can relate to the folks that sit out there, but people have to be willing to do what's being asked of them. And if we can't get over that, then we're going to struggle. So this will be a process. We're talking about change. And so, but this is a major change. So we'll get there. It's just going to take some time. People have to have faith and be supportive. And what we need, really importantly too, is the support of you as a board to be behind us on this, to, when the times get tough and it feels like it's not happening, to know that we need to work through those scenarios. And the data is going to tell us the truth, right? So this team is prepared to do that, along with a lot of other people that will be joining this group. So I'm glad we're spending the time on this tonight, because this is incredibly important for people to understand where we're at as a district and what we're doing to try to move forward with this, so that we can get away from this whole thing that nobody's doing anything. Just not true. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Schatz. We're going to take a second break, but does anybody have a question or any comment that they'd like to make as we wrap this up? Thank you again, and kudos. We'll just take a 5-minute break. We'll be back at 5 minutes to, please. Okay, we'll get back in session again, thank you. We are going to be talking about school lunch accounts. So Brock, do you want to introduce that, and Cindy?
Absolutely. Madam President, members of the board, what you have before you today is a new policy consistent with one of the ELs that really guide what we need to do. If we have new policies or significant changes, we bring them to you so that you are aware of what we're doing. And what we have here is policy 3221, which is school lunch account. And this really is in compliance with a USDA regulation that is going to require school districts who receive funds from the USDA to have a policy in place that speaks to the process for students charging meals that they do not have dollars in their accounts for. To what level do you allow that? How do you go about collecting that? All of which really tracks and monitors what you have for reimbursable meals, how you go about that process. So Cindy Hoganson, our Director of Nutrition Services, and her team went to work and worked with DPI, worked with colleagues throughout the state, really worked within the district to come up with a policy that not only meets the USDA guidelines, but we feel really is sustainable and able to be implemented and meet the needs of Fargo Public Schools and our students and our families that we serve. So we have it attached here for your review. Cindy is here, and we are happy to take any questions you might have about the policy. So that's what I have for you, and we can bring Cindy up if there are any specific questions.
Yes, Jennifer.
I did have one question as I reviewed it. It was one of the sessions I actually attended at the National School Boards as well. So around when a student has a negative balance and they're provided a lunch, do we have it somewhere else in a different policy as to which lunch is provided for the student? Does that need to be in policy or not?
Cindy, can you turn on the mic, please? Thank you. So my understanding is you're referencing alternative meal that a student might get?
Like hot versus cold?
Okay. So that is something that will be changing. That is our current practice at some point when a student reaches a certain level of negative balance, that we switch them over to receive a free alternative meal. And going forward with this new policy and by the direction of USDA is encouraging that students are not treated any differently based on their negative balance. And so we're going to discontinue that practice and go with just continuing to provide the regular school lunch meal to that student and address that negative issue more with the parents than working through the student.
So just as a follow-up, so they choose, in other words, the hot or the cold, just like any other student would do, right?
Right.
Okay.
All students would choose between a hot or cold option. The alternative meal that has been utilized is a third option that's only prepared for those circumstances, and that will be discontinued.
And I think your question was, does that need to be delineated, and do you feel like it's in here, or is that in the policy? Yeah, so that there's no,
Well, I
did that
did
answer your
see in the
question?
policy that it couldn't be à la carte or it couldn't be extra items, but I didn't feel like it was telling me, and maybe there's different direction being given just verbally. Or maybe it will be clear when this alternative isn't available, but that I was looking for it to say one or the other.
no more peanut butter sandwich of shame kind of thing.
Exactly.
Brock, how significant is this problem? Like, at the end of the school year, what was the negative balance?
I will address that to the best I can, and if I say something wrong, Cindy, throw something at me. So one of the things that we were doing is we were only allowing children to charge one meal. And so from a dollar perspective, we would have only had the price of a single meal. And at that point, we switched them to that third alternative that Cindy talked about and Jennifer asked about. What we were not doing is tracking how much of that was going on and what was the cost of that. So we don't have a good sense of the financial impact of that. We only know the cost of one meal times how many kids we had, and Cindy did provide the data of how many at each school, and it wasn't a significant number that end up there. So this also will give us a better opportunity to really, a year from now, have a handle on how big is this issue, and then what do we turn in for reimbursements. Because we weren't tracking it, we also couldn't turn that in as a reimbursable meal either, so we weren't getting that offset, and this will help solve that as well.
May I follow up? So you have no idea how many people will reach this $75 limit where we would notify collections, or?
I would say that it should be very limited circumstances because of all the efforts that we currently do to keep those balances in check, and then also in the policy, all the steps that we'll be taking to work with those parents before they ever reach that $75 limit. So the assumption is it will be very rare that they'll hit that limit.
Does that answer your question, David? Yes. Okay. John?
When I read this, I like this. I think it's compassionate without putting us at significant risk to have endless balances. And I think if, everybody's seen in social media or on the news really negative accounts of kids being treated very poorly because they didn't have a couple of bucks for a meal. How will this policy be distributed and made aware to the nutrition staff, and so that they know how to treat the kids?
So a lot of our staff have been instrumental in developing the policy, as well as other staff across the district. And so they will be trained in this at back-to-school events, and through all our other proper channels that we do to train staff on these things. In addition, the regulations require that this policy is provided to the households in a hard copy form annually. So this will be mailed out to all parents, as well as communicated on the website and handbooks and things like that too as well, so that parents know what to expect if they get into that situation.
I have had community members ask me what to do if they wanted to help out families that might have, or students that have delinquent accounts. And I've said, I'm not sure, call the district office, please. What is the proper procedure for anybody that does want to help out with that?
What works really well is for them to contact the foundation, and they are able to work with those donors and then get that money to us and communicate what the donor wanted that money used for and how they wanted it used, and we're able to facilitate that to happen. And we've been very fortunate to have several of those phone calls this past year and get that help too.
Brock, did you have something you were, oh, okay, looked like you, okay. Go ahead.
One last question, and it's maybe only tangentially related to this, but since you're here, I was going to ask it. And does this change anything, or do we have a policy for, and maybe just how do our kids who need help paying for food get food during summer and holiday breaks, if at all?
So during the summer, there's a summer feeding program that's available with federal funds, and there's several entities that provide that service throughout the summer. And actually, many of those programs are being operated in our schools over the summer through the YMCA, Red River Valley Boys and Girls Club. And so those options are available and being communicated to our students in the schools as they went into summer. And then during breaks, I know we have the backpack program that's operated in our schools, as well as in some of the schools, in the secondary schools, they have food bank rooms such that those students can go into those rooms and collect some things and take them home over the weekend or for those longer breaks.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Well, this is informational only, but we really appreciate hearing about this, learning about this, and appreciate the work that went into developing this policy. And I'm glad that it's moving in a direction of treating our students with more compassion, and thank you for that. So thanks so much for waiting it out and sharing this with us. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, we are now to the consent agenda. Dinah?
I move that we approve the consent agenda with the additional HR addendum.
Second.
Motion and a second to accept the consent agenda with addendum. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same. Motion carries. To the business section, assignment of the canvassing committee. You have memo number 112 in front of you. At this time of year, we are preparing for our reorganizational meeting on July 11th. And so the canvassing committee, which consists of the non-officer members of the governance committee, serve as the canvassing committee, which simply means you contact every board member to see if they are or are not interested in running for president or vice president, and we will make up the ballots accordingly. So that means that Jim, Rebecca, Jennifer, and David will serve as the canvassing committee. And I am going to ask if Jennifer, if you would agree to serve as chair of this group, just to kind of keep track of where things are at?
Sure.
Great, thank you. So you will simply report your findings to Anne Marie in advance of that July 11th meeting. Great, thank you so much. And you will contact Rebecca, since she wasn't here tonight, just to be clear. Great. Moving on to GP7 committee structure monitoring. Thank you for, excuse me, that's not the EL. This is the time of the year when we've come to the end of our seasonal meetings. We've had time to reflect on the committees that we served on. This is an opportunity to look through our committee structure, which committees we have, what their purpose is, and have a discussion at this meeting. If you have any thoughts about how that all worked out this year, if we still have this committees that would work the best for us, if we need to make some changes. So right now, I would invite anyone who has any thoughts along the lines of committees, or any thoughts to share about how things went this year. John?
Sorry to stretch us out. I just wanted to say, in my first year, I've been on a few of these. I've attended all of them at one point or another, and they seem comprehensive, and they seem to be able to break down our business enough that these meetings generally don't stretch out hours and hours, and we get good information from them. And so I personally don't see any reason to change anything. I think it's worked for me as a new member so far. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing those thoughts. Jim?
I'm going to move that we reaffirm GP7 as it currently is written.
Second?
There's a motion and a second to reaffirm it currently as written. Any discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. Anne Marie, if you would please call the roll.
Paulson.
Yes.
Rodenbacher.
Yes.
Ulrich.
Yes.
Ani.
Yes.
Benson.
Yes.
Goldenberg.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you very much, and thank you to the committee chairs for all your good work this year, and to everyone who served on these committees. That is truly the good work of this board. EL10, Communication and Council to Board Monitoring. Thank you for those of you who turned in your responses. And the one comment, Rebecca is not here, but that looks pretty, it was a good suggestion, but it looks operational as to when staff reports to the board on various activities throughout the year. So I'm just assuming Dr. Schatz will take that one. Dr. Schatz, you have anything to?
Coming in August.
Coming in August, done. Phew, good. I would entertain a motion to accept this.
I move that
Monitoring?
we accept monitoring report on EL10, Communication and Counsel to the Board as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the monitoring of EL10. Anne Marie, if you would please call the roll.
Rodenbacher.
Yes.
Ulrich.
Yes.
Ani.
Yes.
Benson.
Yes.
Goldenberg.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Paulson.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. We're on to committee reports and liaison reports. John, would you like to start us tonight, please?
Thank you. I attended the Woodrow Wilson graduation as a guest. They were one of my liaison assignments this year. And I also attended the graduation and handed out diplomas at South. And it was really wonderful, both experiences. There's a lot of contrast between the two, but wonderful to see those students go out into the world very well prepared. I also attended the Indian Education public hearing on the 6th. I took a few notes from that. I wish Rebecca was here because they had 2 sessions. I went to the noon one, which was lightly attended. I think there was a much larger crowd and probably more dialogue at the evening event. But just my biggest takeaways were that we're making progress for these students, but there's still a long way to go for them. But it was overall a good event. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Jennifer?
The only thing I have to report is I attended Davies' graduation and handed out diplomas, and that was a unique experience. And I just want to say thank you. I enjoyed watching the slideshow and shaking lots of hands.
Thank you. Jim?
Planning met primarily to get a look at where we are with the budget planning team on our different budgets, and I'm here to tell you they're getting very, very close. Not 100% balanced on the general fund, but not as far away as we felt we might have been a couple of weeks ago. So planning is scheduled to meet on Thursday, June 22nd. That's not our regular meeting time, but we need to be prepared to hopefully recommend all of our budgets at the second meeting in June for preliminary approval. So that'll be when we're taking our last look at them at the Planning Committee. You're certainly all welcome to join us if you'd like to. I think a few of you probably are aware of this, but the state board actually has made an offer and it's been accepted for a person for our next executive director. Her name is Alexis Baxter, and she'll officially be on board on July 1. And John is going to continue on full-time through all of July, and he'll be on a consulting contract through the rest of the year to really help make sure, hopefully, that transition is smooth for her. I think that's about it.
Great, thank you. Dinah?
I'm afraid I've been traveling virtually constantly, so I have nothing to report.
I don't think we've ever heard those words come from you. Thank you. David?
I handed out diplomas with Rebecca at North, and that's about all I've accomplished.
Thank you, Christy.
I was a participant in Davies and enjoyed it very much.
Thank you. And Brandy?
I handed out diplomas at South, and I'm going to tell you it was awesome because I went to Ada, Minnesota. It took 2 hours, and there was 44 kids. There was almost 200 at South, so I was very, very impressed with the way it went. That's all I have.
Excellent, thank you. Good to know, good to know. Affirmations are always good. I handed out diplomas with Dr. Schatz at Woodrow Wilson, and that's always one of my favorite things in the entire year. And that's about all I did. So we are now to the point of a possible executive session. Is there a motion to adjourn into executive session? Jim?
I'd like to move that we go into executive session for the purpose of negotiation strategy as permitted under North Dakota Century Code 44-04-19.1.
Second. There's a motion and a second to move into executive session. Anne Marie, if you would please call the roll.
Ulrich.
Yes.
Ani.
Yes.
Benson.
Yes.
Goldenberg.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Paulson.
Yes.
Rodenbaker.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes, we are adjourned into executive session. Thank you. There are no actionable items coming out of executive session, so we are adjourned until June 27th.